With the latest advancements in technology that we have today, like CGI, fake blood, and incredibly realistic makeup, it doesn't seem hard to show blood or violence in movies. Well, let us tell you that accidents can happen to anyone, even to our favorite heroes. But what's more surprising is that our heroes chose not to stop the scene and continued to stay in character while they were bleeding. Their blood not only made these moments epic, but also immortalized their blood forever. Plus, they earned more of our respect. Without further ado, let's begin. Number 10. Jake Gyllenhaal in Nightcrawler. Released in 2014, the movie Nightcrawler was perhaps one of the most challenging movies for Jake Gyllenhaal. Do you know that in order to get into the character, he had to lose 25 to 30 pounds of his weight? And being on the verge of starvation probably gave him a weird kind of hunger-driven energy. In a restroom scene in this suspenseful thriller about a paparazzi in Los Angeles, Jake Gyllenhaal punched a mirror out of frustration. Well, it wasn't supposed to break, but Gyllenhaal's blood still showed up in the movie. It was so bad that he had to move to the hospital after the scene to get 46 stitches in his left hand. Reportedly, he shot 2 additional scenes afterward while trying to hide his cut-up hand from the camera. Before we proceed, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon. Number 9. Darryl Hannah in Blade Runner. In this scene of the classic sci-fi movie Blade Runner, Darryl Hannah's character Priz is running from William Sanderson into a dark alley. As it turns out, Hannah stumbles on the slit ground and falls onto a car, breaking her elbow on the glass. Although it seems that it was part of the scene, actually, it was totally accidental. Later on, she noticed that her elbow was damaged in over 8 places. While this injury of her became immortal with this movie scene, the scar also seems to be immortal, because it's still visible today. Number 8. Martin Sheen in Apocalypse Now. One of the most famous war movies ever made, Apocalypse Now by Francis Ford Coppola, immediately engages the spectator with some magnificent sequences. The movie opens with Martin Sheen's captain Benjamin L. Willard alone in a hotel room, reeling from his wartime experiences. During this scene, Sheen accidentally cuts himself on a piece of glass. Although some rumors say that he was slightly drunk during the shooting of this scene, we do know that the blood he smears across his face after hurting his hand is his own blood. What's more surprising is that Martin Sheen stayed in character and asked his director to keep the cameras rolling till the scene concluded. Impressive, right? Number 7. Steve Carrel in The 40-Year-Old Virgin. Carrel's first leading part came in Apato's directorial debut, The 40-Year-Old Virgin, the 2005 R-rated comedy. Carrel played the role of Andy Stitzer, a nerdy electronics store employee who accidentally reveals to his coworkers that he's still a virgin. Sadly for Steve Carrel, the uncomfortable wax moment also turned out to be spontaneous. In other words, a 4-camera setup allowed for the documentary-style capture of his painful screams, as well as the blood on his chest. At that time, Romany Malco was so scared that he had to leave the room. Seth Rogen's wincing in the background was also real. How epic and subtle. Number 6. Sean Bean in Patriot Games. In this 1992 classic, Sean Bean's character, Sean Miller, gets into a fight on a speedboat with Harrison Ford. In this scene, Ford was able to use a boat hook to strike Bean directly above the eye. Miller eventually dies when Harrison Ford struck him onto the anchor. Although Sean Bean did not experience the full force of the anchor on his chest, he did literally contribute his own blood to this scene, making it immortal. Later on, Bean got numerous stitches to treat the wound, leaving a permanent scar over his left eye. Thankfully, it simply strengthens his tough, rugged character, which fits the roles he frequently plays. What do you think? Number 5. Channing Tatum in Foxcatcher. Channing Tatum played the role of an Olympic wrestler in the movie Foxcatcher in 2014. During this scene, this Olympic wrestler loses his control and hits his head against a mirror, although the crew had already covered the mirror with a plastic sheet to protect Tatum. But that didn't make any difference while he smashed his head. Coming back to the scene, Tatum struck the mirror with his head 3 times. This strike was so powerful that it shattered the mirror, and its frame and punched a hole through the drywall behind the frame. Not only this, but Tatum's strike also left a 2-inch divot in the drywall. Number 4. Viggo Mortenson in Lord of the Rings. In Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, there was a scene in which Aragorn, aka Viggo Mortenson, thinks that Merry and Pippin are dead, and then he kicks the helmet toward the camera and shows some painful expressions. With the hope to capture a perfect shot of the helmet flying toward the camera, Viggo Mortenson had to take several takes for this scene. On the 5th take, Mortenson shouted in agony and fell to his knees, brilliantly portraying his character's suffering. But at that moment, no one except Mortenson knew that he was suffering for real. With that final kick, he had broken 2 toes, and it took a while for the creative team to understand what actually happened. Number 3. James Franco in Pineapple Express. Did you notice the gray bandana worn by James Franco in the movie Pineapple Express? Well, there's a painful story behind this. In this movie released in 2008, Seth Rogen and James Franco and their characters think that something must be pursuing them in the woods. The men, seemingly under the effects of paranoia caused by the constant use of marijuana, started racing erratically through the woods while trying to get away from an unidentified enemy. Franco crashed into a tree while sprinting. In an attempt to keep it real, Franco made the decision to run toward the tree with full force. Sadly, he struck a screw holding a pad in place with his forehead. He needed 3 stitches for his wound. For the rest of the film, he had to cover his head with this gray bandana, which also became his signature. Number 2. Brad Pitt in Seven. During a powerful scene in the movie Seven, Kevin Spacey, characterized as John Doe, was being pursued by Detective Mills, aka Brad Pitt, through the buildings and streets of LA. The accident happened when Brad Pitt stumbled from a fire escape, damaging his arm. Scene then onwards, you would have seen him with a cast on his arm. But this injury was not part of the movie's plan. In another instance, Pitt again suffered serious injuries when his arm smashed through the window of a car. Both these injuries compelled the director, David Fincher, to alter the original script of the movie and incorporate Pitt's injuries as Detective Miller's. Number 1. Leonardo DiCaprio in Django Unchained. Leonardo DiCaprio, while playing the role of Calvin Candy in the movie Django Unchained, was supposed to bang his hand on the table. One thing that wasn't supposed to be there was the glass left by the actor Quentin Tarantino. So you may guess what happened. DiCaprio banged the table and hit the glass, smashing it and hurting himself. And yes, the blood you see on DiCaprio's hand in this scene is his own real blood. The wound was so bad that it needed immediate medical attention. But our brave hero continued to stay in character by using the hand as a dramatic prop and by beautifully blending this act with the scene. Thank you for watching and subscribing to the channel. See you in the next video.